Good evening, everyone. My apologies for being a little bit late, but welcome to this meeting of the Temple City Council for September 2nd, 2021. Please rise as Mayor Pro Tem Judy Morales leads us in the invocation, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by City Secretary Jana Llewellyn.
Join me, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for being with us today as we are reminded that in John 8:12, that you are the light of the world, and whoever follows you will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. You know the beginning from the end. You ordain all things to work out for our good. Even as this trial our world is going through, Father, we take heart because Jesus has overcome the world. Help us to draw strength from you, for we know there is a time for everything, a time for joy and a time for weeping. We as city council members, mayor, city staff, pray to be good representatives of love of our community. Give us the wisdom and courage to live our faith boldly and consistently. Clean hypocrisy out of our hearts and wipe away any prejudice and favoritism. Give us strength and insight. Help us to look at each other through the lens of your love. Father, we are reminded that Jesus traveled through towns and villages, curing every disease and illness. At your command, the sick were made well. Please come to our aid now in the midst of the global spread of the coronavirus, that we may experience your healing love. Heal those who are sick with the virus. May they gain their strength and health through quality medical care. Heal us from our fears, from prevention, from nations from working together, and neighbors from helping one another. Be with those who have died from the virus. May they be at rest with you in your eternal peace. And Father, bless and be with the doctors, the nurses, researchers, all medical professionals, our firemen, our police, and all those who seek to heal and help those affected and who put themselves at risk in the process. May they know your protection and peace. We thank you, Father, for the gift of the vaccine that may help keep people safe. Father, today we especially ask again that you be with our military men and women and all those who are suffering from the Afghan war. Keep them safe, protect those who have left behind, touch the hearts of those who do not know you, and let them know your love and your peace. Be with the world leaders of all nations and give them the foresight to act with charity and true concern for the well-being of the people they are meant to serve. Give them the wisdom to invest in long-term solutions that will help prepare for and prevent future war outbreaks. May they know your peace as they work together to achieve it on earth. And lastly, Father, we thank you for all our blessings each day. We thank you for your peace and your love for each one of us here today. We love you, Father, and we ask all this in your most precious name, Jesus. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ladies. Now is the time for public comments. Anyone wishing to speak to the council may do so as long as you've signed up prior to this meeting. And the sheet that I'm holding has no one has signed up. So we will move on to item number 3, which is a discussion regarding 12 East Central. Mr. Furch, welcome you to the podium. When you get there, please state your name and address for the record, and you got 5 minutes.
James Furch on 12 East Central, downtown Central. Pictures. The very home. No. Anyway, so this is a side view of the building that I have. It's back in 2011. You see two dumpsters on the side. These dumpsters were hitting the side of the building and knocking out light fixtures. If you look closely, which you really can't see, but the light fixtures have been changed numerous times from the dumpster sitting. Next picture, please. So this is the building I'm at currently. This is April 2021. Yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and show you different examples of different locations that have had dumpsters either damaged property or are not being put where they're supposed to be. So like this is K Jewelers. There's a cement pad. That dumpster not even close to that cement pad. This is barely hanging on the side. Next. This is Valet Cleaners. City of Temple has tore up asphalt there. And this is the second time. So last week they were out, the City of Temple was actually out there replacing the asphalt from the damages of the dumpsters. Next. This is behind Staples. This is how good shape we keep our trash dumpsters or whatever you want to call them. This is a cardboard box holder. Next. So this is a Precious Memories. If you look on the right-hand side, they put center blocks in order to keep the dumpsters from hitting them. They've already knocked the meter out twice. So this is a way of Precious Memories trying to solve the problem and quit hitting the dumpster or quit hitting the water meter, knocking the water. Next. This is Thornton Elementary School. In 1 month, this fence was knocked down 2 times. I have an employee whose relative works for the City of Temple trash department, and I know for sure that this happened twice. So that's one. Go ahead, next one. So you can see it was not completely out of the sidewalk. Next, please. This is the actual dumpster. If you look in behind it, you can see the wall has been scraped. And this dumpster is 4 feet away from that wall. Next. This is a Sonic on 57th Street. Dumpster hit the back fence. It's 3 feet away. Next. This is at Cheese Brothers. You can still see the dumpster hit up against the wall, and you can see the damage on the side of the wall from where it's been hit each time. Next. Raz Kitchen. You can see again, dumpster right up against the building, and it's hit that ledge numerous times. Next. Excel. Look at the gutter. It's been hit. Next. This is United Way. They just repainted and remodeled that whole building, what, a year and a half ago? You can already see all the damage from them moving that dumpster back and forth down that wall. Next. Same alley. Dumpster sitting on top of the water meter. By state building code, that's not allowed. And yet it's on there. Next. This is behind Johnny's Cleaners, where the new extra code parking lot's supposed to be. That's a steel post knocked off of that ledge from the dumpsters being hit. Next. This is at Temple Bible Church. This was last week. You see where the dumpster's located and how it's been moved to the curb. Next, please. This is yesterday. It's already been moved back up about 4 to 5 feet, different location. Next. I don't remember where this was at, but it's obvious there's damage to the wall. Please next. This is behind the hub. You see where it's hitting the ledge. Next. So we got all these dumpsters so close to hitting these walls and stuff. This again is by the hub. This dumpster is 1.5 feet away from that electric meter. What happens when you hit the electric meter? You're 4 feet away from a wall in Thornton Elementary where kids play, and yet you're 1.5 feet away from the electric meter there. Next. Building code, you're not supposed to have them. That's 10 inches away from that one. Behind it. We've already seen what damages these dumpsters are doing, yet we got a meter right behind this dumpster. Next.
Going to emails right now?
Yes. So whenever I sit here and I started going back and forth with the city, I was offered $5,000 to basically fix the side of my building. I had an estimate for over $145,000. The guy who's redoing the professional building came over, said that it wouldn't be any less than $200,000. And that he wouldn't even bid it because it's too much work. But city offered me $5,000. Next, please. Okay.
Bert, you're overtime. I'll give you a couple more minutes.
Good time.
You're over, you started at 5:13.
So we'll just get down. So go to video, please. Video 1. So you notice how they push the trash cans. Watch how this one is being lifted. This is the one that I had before. As he picks it up, it comes back. And when it does, it would hit the wall and scrapes the side of the wall. So video. So I have a video that shows where the city of Temple's supervisor for the trash department is over there talking to one of his employees, discussing the damage on the side of my building. I also have a picture of them looking at the, can you go back to the picture? I'm trying to remember which one that was. Right before that. See, the other, my pictures are gone. So I had a picture of the dumpster actually being bent. It looked like an Incredible Hulk. It sit here and bent steel on it. And then I'm told by the city attorney that I don't have any evidence for them to sit here and be able to pay anything. But my question is, why move the dumpster in the first place away from the building if it wasn't causing damage? Why sit here and offer me $5,000 if you're not liable for what you've done? The last part, since my pictures are gone, what other evidence do you need? And why is it my responsibility to cover the damage that the city caused? If y'all hit a piece of property or whatever, or the city hits your property, you would expect to have this stuff taken care of and not having out-of-pocket expense. My answer to how you came up with $5,000, it was a good faith gesture. $5,000 doesn't even pay for the sand and water for that. So I'm stuck with the difference between $100,000. If basically, whenever these people, these sanitation workers are hitting these buildings, how is it that they're not going inside and telling the property owners that they've damaged the building? Or they're not going to the supervisor and saying the same thing, hey, I damaged the property. Please go talk to the property owner. Because if you look at state law, that's considered hit and run. It doesn't matter who you are. And they hit my building so many times, I could feel them hitting it. It would shake the whole building. So if any one of us ever did any of these problems, we would all go to jail. Sanitation department hasn't. Nobody wants to be responsible. Ask me any questions, please.
Council, any questions?
So when you filled out the claim, that's when they offered you the 5,000?
No, that's 8 months later.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was told that I ought to be privileged to come into a meeting with the city attorney 6 months after I sit here and filed the claim. So I filed the claim in December. And it still hasn't gone through. As she's smiling, but the whole point is, this is 8 months later. Tragedy from the claims, municipal claims insurance company said, you can pay up to 100,000. People I've talked to, 100,000. Why offer me 5,000 when you're way above that damages? As of tomorrow, I'm gonna start going to all the property owners and letting them know they can file a claim, because I was blown off. And that's not cool. You know, who paid for the damage to Thornton Elementary? Me, taxpayers. Everybody in here paid for damages to that elementary school for lack of training for an employee for the sanitation department who's been there 2 months. He was there. He hit that gate 2 times, fence. So I'm not trying to be a jerk. You know, I just donated $2,500 to a music festival for the city of Temple, starts this weekend. $5,000 slap in the face.
Okay.
So how do I get any resolution? Where are we gonna go from here?
So Ms. Davis, I hate to put you on the spot, but I put staff on the spot all the time. So can you explain the justification of the 5,000 versus 100 or 200 or whatever else?
Yes, just again, just a little bit of background on the process. And I guess you all know council. And we invite anyone who feels that city staff has damaged their property to file a claim. That's what we have the process for. And we will gather the information, and we will attempt to gather the information. And then the information that we do have, we will send off to TML, which is, they're not an insurance provider, but they do act in that capacity for cities. And they will investigate. In this case, they did hire an outside adjuster to come in because Mr. Furch had multiple claims. And so there were many just different aspects that needed to be looked at. And so they did that. And that's part of what took so long. There was a lot of back and forth on requesting information and whether he would give it. It took a while to get the information that we finally did get. And then when we got that, we did provide it to TML. Originally, his claim, he said, dated back 10 years. And by law, the statute of limitations for a city is 2 years. So we can't pay for any damages that extend past that 2-year time frame. And then his time frame was adjusted down to 2 years after that happened. So from what the information that was given to TML, they were not able to establish that it was city workers that did the damage. There's pictures of damage that occurred. There's pictures of damage around the dumpsters, but and we go off of their advice because that's what they do for us, that there was not enough evidence to prove that the city workers did the damage and that the damage occurred within the last 2 years, and recommended that we make a $5,000 offer, a good faith offer. That's exactly right, what Mr. Furch referred to it as.
How is it that even if you damage it once?
You need to address the council, please. No, that's fine.
If you damage the property one time, whether it was 10 years ago or whatever, I understand the 10 years, I figured that out. I didn't know any better before. But after the 2 years, it even states in one of the emails, December 3rd of 2020, y'all decided that property was damaged by a trash truck. Now, it's no different than you going hitting my Audi Spider. You hit it, who's going to be responsible for it? You know, $30,000 worth of damage or whatever. Is it your choice to, you want to paint it a different color or whatever to solve the problem? This isn't a patch repair. I've talked to too many brick masons. It has to be done, it has to be all ripped off and redone to match it. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to restore that building and the building next door. And then I get a $5,000 estimate. And like I said, suppose, where'd my video go of your guys that were talking about it being damaged? Where's my video or pictures of the actual dumpster being bent, steel? as thick as my pinky being bent because it was scraping up the inside of the building. You know, it's obvious. The damage is right there next to where the dumpster used to be. The claim adjuster saw it. He agreed. The municipal, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to look at you. I'm trying to address everybody. But
City
I'm trying
attorney.
to whoever it was, they told me that was your decision to offer 5,000, not theirs. That's what the city decided to offer. I even have it in the email. It says the city offered.
Right. All is understood. Appreciate your time.
Okay.
All right, moving on. Item number 4 is to recognize September 2021 as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. I have a proclamation up here. Ms. Sharon Rose, would you like to step up? Right, if I may, please read this proclamation. It reads, whereas prostate cancer is both the second most commonly diagnosed cancer and the second leading cause of cancer deaths. Whereas in 2021 alone, 248,530 men in the United States were diagnosed with the illness, and 34,130 men died from this disease. And whereas National Prostate Health Month is observed every September in the United States by health experts, health advocates, and individuals concerned with men's prostate cancer. And whereas designating a month for this issue serves the purpose of increasing public awareness of the importance of prostate health, providing easily accessible prostate health screenings, educating about risk factors and symptoms of prostate-related diseases, and advocating for further research on prostate health issues. And whereas cancer research will enhance our knowledge and improve prostate cancer prevention and treatment. Now, therefore, I, Timothy A. Davis, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, do hereby proclaim September 2021 as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Temple, and I urge all citizens and individuals to raise awareness, support research, improve care, and prevention of prostate cancer. In testimony whereof, I witness my hand in the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, on this second day of September 2021. Thank you very much. Would you like to make some comments to the crowd? Hope this is on. I didn't get a green light or anything. I'm getting nothing, so I bet it is.
Turn this around.
Yeah, why don't you set that up there? Sorry about that.
Thank you, Mayor, council members.
Citizens.
I really appreciate this proclamation, and I have been a legislative advocate for prostate cancer with the nonprofit called Zero, the End of Prostate Cancer, based out of Washington, D.C. I generally go there once a year and get with my congressmen and senators about keeping the funding going for this very important matter. And it's a privilege of mine. My father was a prostate cancer survivor, and I lost him, and I dedicated myself to the cause because I knew he would want me to do that. So I really appreciate working hard and trying to help save men and their families. It's hard on everybody. It's not just his disease, it's a family disease. So I appreciate the proclamation, and I have every intention to bring more awareness to Bell County in any form or fashion.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your dedication. Okay, moving on to item 5, which is the consent agenda. All items listed under this section are considered to be routine by the city council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by the council, any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any council member and will be considered separately. We discussed the consent agenda during our council workshop, and council at that time, there was no desire to remove anything. Is that still true? All right. Very good. Then at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items, which is 5A through 5AA.
Mr. Mayor, move for approval of the consent agenda items 5A through 5AA.
Second.
Very good. We have a motion by Councilmember Williams. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Item number 5 passes 5 votes to 0. Moving on to item 6, which is the regular agenda. First item is the second reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a city-initiated rezoning from agriculture to light industrial zoning district on 313.93 plus or minus acres located at the southwest corner of Industrial Boulevard and Loop 363. Council, we received a presentation on this at our last council meeting. Would anybody like to have Mr. Chandler present again? Everybody okay? All right. Then at this time, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on item 6 may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the platform. Okay, they're being, pardon? Would somebody like to step to the podium? It's the one I just read about rezoning 313 acres. Anybody? Very good. I'll take this time now to close the public hearing, and council, I'll entertain a motion on item number 6.
Motion to approve item 6.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Walker. We have a second by Councilmember Long. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Item 6 passes 5 votes to 0. Moving on to item number 7. It's the first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing the voluntary annexation of 229.361 plus or minus acres located between Old Highway 95 and Hartrick Bluff Road in Bell County. Mr. Chandler.
All right. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. And if this seems like deja vu, it's because this is really part 2 of the Daniels annexation, and I'll tell you in a second why. So looking at the vicinity map, you can see it's the area shown in gold adjacent to Old Highway 95. And so you'll recall that there was a voluntary annexation to annex Old Highway 95 to be able to allow for consideration of this part 2 of the Daniel annexation. And because of the railroad right-of-way between the 2 tracks, and legislation has changed that since, well, effective yesterday, but either way, here we are. And so you look at the survey to the right, and that's a zoomed in version of the 229 acres. And so, as I had mentioned, the acreage was on hold pending the annexation of Old Highway 95. And due to the bisecting of the 2 properties, the Daniels tract by the railroad right-of-way. And so recent passage of State Bill 374 would prevent that from being a barrier in the future. So that's good news. And kudos to Bryn and you all for making that a priority and advocating for that legislation, which will not only help us in the future, but other cities. And then also pursuant to section 430672 in the local government code, the property owner was offered a municipal services agreement. That was back in May, and which was accepted on July 22nd. And per the agreement, the city is not required to provide any services that are not included in the agreement. The agreement had, prior to approval, was circulated to all city departments, and there were no issues identified by any of the relevant departments that you can see up there on the screen. And so staff does recommend approval of this voluntary annexation. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have some.
Thank you, sir. Council, any questions for Mr. Chandler? We have seen this one a couple of times. I think we're all up to speed on it. Okay. If there are no questions by council, then I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item may do so. We ask that you come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the virtual platform. Nobody? All right, very good. I will close the public hearing on item number 7 and entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve item number 7 as presented by Brian, and make the point that this is a voluntary annexation.
Second.
Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor, I'll be abstaining on this because of the perceived conflict.
Yes. Very good. We have a motion by Councilmember Long, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Item number 7 passes 4 votes yes, 0 votes no, and 1 abstention. Moving on to item number 8 is the first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance amending chapter 40 nuisances of the City Code of Ordinances, including the addition of language related to graffiti abatement and formatting and numbering changes. Mr. Craig.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me tonight to present this. So tonight we're talking about graffiti and specifically updating our chapter 40 ordinance to bring our code, our city code, into alignment with the state law. So graffiti is definition. Graffiti is any unauthorized inscription, word, letter, figure, symbol, or some mark that's made in any manner that is regardless of its content or the nature of the material. It's a public nuisance, which is always important to address because it tends to reduce the value of private property. It does invite vandalism, additional graffiti, and other criminal activities, produces urban blight, and is detrimental to safety and welfare of the public. That's why we're talking about it. So up until now, we have used our IPMC, International Property Maintenance Code, the 2009, which all have adopted, to address graffiti issues. And that says no person shall willfully or wantonly damage, mutilate, or deface any exterior surface, blah, 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 carving or graffiti. So that's what we used before. Effective September 1st, 2009, which was some time ago, the state decided that if a municipality wants to address graffiti, the municipality has to offer to remove the graffiti free of charge, and the property owner has refused the offer before we can go in there. Either they have to approve us coming in, or before we can write them up and we remove it, or they refuse us coming in and we remove it. So how are we going to address this issue? We would send a letter of notification, assuming y'all pass this, send a letter of notification, offer to abate it. We would send along a consent form for them to allow us onto their property and a liability waiver. We would wait 2 weeks if we got no response. We will assume that is refusal if we get no response, sorry, or if they actually refuse it, or they refuse to write a permission for us to come on their property and remove it. So at that point, we would send notification and order the removal. And we would either have to hand it to them personally or send a certified letter. If that doesn't happen, if we can't contact them in that way, then we can publish in the paper, post it on a structure, or post on a placard staked to the ground. And then we would wait 15 days for them to remove it. Hold on. Thank you. If the offer of removal is accepted, we will enter the property, oh, and all the forms are signed. We would enter the property to pressure wash or paint over it. If it's refused, we'll do the same thing, but then send a bill. And then if the bill is not paid, we will file a lien on the property. In the timeline, I presented this at August 19th at your workshop. Today is the first reading. And if it passes tonight, then we'll move on to the second reading on the 16th. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer. To the
Very
best
good.
of my ability.
Yes, I understand. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Craig. Council, any questions for Mr. Craig? Nothing? All right, then, at this time, I will open a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. As usual, we ask that you step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Or raise your hand. See no one coming forward. I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion on item number 8.
Make a motion to approve item 8.
Second that motion.
You have a motion by Councilmember Walker. We have a second by Councilmember Long. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Item 8 passes 5 votes to 0. Moving on to item number 9. It's the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance setting the conditions for receiving certification and other additional payments for firefighters, as well as repealing several ordinances relating to setting the conditions for receiving certification and other additional payments for firefighters to be replaced with a consolidated and updated ordinance. Ms. Raymore.
Good evening, everyone. I promise the presentation is shorter than the description. You may recall back last month, a very similar item related to the police department. So again, what we're asking is to repeal several ordinances and consolidate them.
Thank you
into
so much.
Adios.
Adios. You have a good.
But for fire. So as you may recall, council may authorize additional pay. In the case of fire, that would include educational incentive, fire paramedic certification, fire EMT certification, fire training certification, special operations certification, or assignment pay. Currently, there are 2 ordinances that we were able to locate. One from 2013 that authorized the fire paramedic certification pay, and one from 2017, which authorized the special operations certification pay. And those are the 2 that we're asking to repeal, and any others, because this ordinance will supersede all others. So the proposed ordinance, it consolidates the prior ad pay ordinances that may exist, all previous ones. It references the civil service pay charts for the payment amounts. So there again, we wouldn't come back with an ordinance each time those amounts change. And it incorporates changes that were recommended as part of the civil service market study, which would add assignment pay for both captain and battalion chiefs that do the training. And I'm happy to answer any questions related to this item.
Council. Again, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the virtual platform.
I asked, hold on a second, I was getting a chat from. Ask her if this is one she wanted to speak on. It's Mrs. Creech.
You said unmute.
I did unmute. Hello?
Hi, Mrs. Creech.
Yes.
Did you want to speak on this item?
Do you want to speak on this item?
No, but there's one we want to speak on later.
There's one later.
Which
There's,
one?
there's the raised hand. I see it now. Thank you.
Thank you. We decided no.
Yeah, we're good.
All right, there being no one wishing to participate in the public hearing, I'll close that public hearing. And council, I'll entertain a motion on item 9.
Yeah, I make a motion for approval.
Second that motion.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Morales, and we have a second by Councilmember Walker. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Item 9 passes 5 votes to 0. Moving on to item number 10 is the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance amending the police officer classifications to add 5 police officers and to remove the police officer cadet rank. Ms. Raymore.
So this presentation will actually cover agenda items 10 and 11 because they're similar type items. And this is the police and fire position classification ordinance updates.
Raymore. Do I need to read in 11 now too, since the presentation covers both? Okay. All right, item number 11 is the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance amending the firefighters classification to add 1 battalion chief and to remove 1 assistant fire chief with an effective date of October 1st, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. So some background, chapter 143.021 requires the council establish by ordinance the classifications of both the police and fire departments and the number of positions in each classification. So an overview, we're requesting to increase the police officer classification by 5 and to remove the cadet rank from the police officer. It's the cadet position from the police officer rank on our pay charts. And then in fire, we're requesting to decrease the assistant fire chief classification by 1 and increase the battalion chief classification by 1. So for the police department request, the reason that we're asking for 5 new police officer positions is because those were added during the budget process for FY22. And during our civil service market study, we recommended the elimination of the cadet rank as part of that process. I think Erin mentioned that a little earlier during her workshop presentation you guys discussed. For the fire department, Article 2 of the meet and confer agreement that was adopted back in September of last year, it created an additional appointed assistant chief position in the fire department. The assistant chief was then appointed from a battalion chief rank. So I came to you back last year to reduce a battalion chief and increase an assistant chief. That agreement with TPFFA will be lapsing on September the 30th. And due to the end of that agreement, we need to reverse what we did this past year, which will result in us decreasing that assistant chief position and adding back the battalion chief. So we're reversing what we did last year. So today we're recommending approval of the request by ordinance to increase the police officer positions by 5 and removing the police officer cadet rank from the police officer civil service pay chart, and approval of the request by ordinance to decrease the assistant fire chief position by 1 and increase the battalion chief position by 1. This is what the count will look like after tonight or after the next reading, actually. It's approved. So the officers will go from 109 to 114 with that addition of 5. Since the cadet rank is included in the officer rank, it doesn't change the number count by changing that title. For the fire department, this is what that will look like. We'll go from 2 assistant fire chiefs to 1 and go from 4 battalion chiefs to 5. I'm happy to answer questions.
Ma'am, council, any questions for Ms. Raymore? Okay. Both items 10 and 11 are subject to a public hearing. So if anyone would like to speak on either one of those, I'll just open both public hearings at the same time. Okay.
unmute, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Alan Lytle, 504B Paseo del Plata, Temple. I applaud you for the 5 additional police officers, but would like to ask, is it possible to go ahead and allocate more positions, even though they're unfunded, so they don't have to come back and remodify this again in 6 months to add additional police officers? Thank you.
Thank you. How many officers do we currently have staffed? I mean, I know that we're going up to 119, but we're not, we're short.
I believe that we have 17 current vacancies.
Yes, sir.
And we do, as council will recall, we do have a staffing plan for the police department that presented in the business plan. So there are, I believe, a total of 40 sworn and non-sworn positions that are planned to be added to the police department over the course of our 7-year plan. So we would take those positions as necessary once they come online. Doing so before the funding is in place creates some liability under financial liability under civil service law.
Okay. Now, I hope you understand and remember that we have also hired a recruitment firm for officers. We approved that contract a month or so ago. So even though we're not up to the 114, we are actively working to fill all the vacancies that we can as soon as we can. So everyone understands the need for additional officers, and the city of Temple is working toward filling that need.
Just to be clear, these are additional authorizations. We don't have to come back anytime someone is hired to fill the authorization. So those 17 vacancies are already authorized. So when a qualified candidate is identified and hired, that doesn't require any further action from council. This just allows us to add the additional 5 that we've allocated for the upcoming fiscal year, so that when we identify qualified candidates, we can make those hires without further action from council.
Understood. Thank you. Mr. Lytle, anything else?
No, thank you. That helps clarify it.
Good. Anybody else? All right, there being none, I'll close the public hearing on both items 10 and 11. Council, I'll entertain a motion on item number 10.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve item 10 as presented by Ms. Raymore.
Second it.
You have a motion by Councilmember Long and a second by Councilmember Walker. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Item 10 passes 5 votes to 0. We'll move forward to item number 11. Council, I'll entertain a motion on item 11.
Mayor, I'll make the same.
Mayor, I make a motion.
Go ahead and finish your motion, Susan.
Well, okay, Mayor, I'll make the same motion as I did on 10. I move that we approve item 11 as presented by Ms. Raymore.
Good. Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Long, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Item 11 passes 5 votes to 0. Item 12 is a first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing an amendment and adopting the tax increment finance reinvestment zone number 1 financing and project plans to align with master plans by reallocating funding of projects in fiscal year 2021 and to adjust future debt service in fiscal year 2022 through fiscal year 2041 based on savings from issuances of Series 2021 tax increment revenue bonds. Ms. Bernard.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The amendment before you today, as it's pretty well described in the item narrative, it's adjustments to the revenues for the bond proceeds to reflect the actual transaction. Also includes an adjustment recognizing possible reimbursement from a future developer participation agreement. And then fundings identified through review of projects that are underway, projects that are completed, or reprogramming of future projects. And then as mentioned, the debt service, there was significant savings compared to what was in the plan. And it adjusts the debt service to reflect the actual bond transaction. The proposed source of funds total $4,984,900. There's a list to show the larger one, the outer loop, Winland and McLean Parkway. That was from savings on the project. It has been bid and under construction. Corporate hangar phase 4 was for infrastructure that will be reprogrammed and considered in a future year to align with the need of those improvements. 31st Street monumentation, again, reprogramming that to a future year. And I won't go through the whole list, but you can look down and see the various line items and sources of funds. I will highlight one more. Out of this 4.9 million, we did use 250,000 of unallocated fund balance. Then the programming or proposed use of those funds totals the same amount as the source of funds that were identified. Includes design services for Winland, the I-35 outer loop, adding a flyover to that project over the railroad track, and also adding water and wastewater to the project. Again, that's just the design. It includes design for several industrial park water and sewer projects. It includes compliance design for East Outer Loop, I-35 to Gun Club Road, and also I-14 to Lorraine Drive. Includes additional funding for Synergy Park infrastructure improvements, some design services there, new project. And then it also adds funding for the MLK Festival Fields underground electric and the building. Just quickly, the timeline, this all has been reviewed by the Reinvestment Zone Project Committee and also the Reinvestment Zone Finance Committee. It was approved by the Reinvestment Zone Board, and now it's before you for the first reading. If approved, it moves to a second reading on September 16th. And at that meeting, you'd also consider several of the design contracts that were funded, and also consider a award of a construction contract for the MLK Festival Field electrical and building improvements. And that completes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions related to the amendment.
Thank you. Number one, I always appreciate the hard work and analyzing that finance does to save money when possible. That's significant. Over what, 20 years, 9.2 million? Yep. I know that when I've said in those reinvestment zone meetings, all these projects, the longer we wait on them, the more expensive they get. So it's sort of eaten into that savings from bonds. So again, I appreciate you pushing things forward and figuring out how to get those done very much.
Thank you. The part of the big savings on that reinvestment zone bond was getting them to the investment grade rating, which has a lot to do with what's going on in our community. And the savings on some of those other projects has to do a lot with city staff and engineering and helping develop the cost and not being the low bidder on the projects too. So,
right.
And some competitive bids that have come in.
Very good. Council, anything else? This item, which is item number 12, is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the platform. Nothing? All right. We'll close the public hearing on item number 12. Council, if you don't have any further comments, please cast your vote. But why don't we go ahead and do a motion first?
I move that we adopt item number 12.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Williams. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. Now, Alex, now please cast your vote. Item 12 passes 5 votes to 0. Moving on to item 13 is the first reading and a second public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance establishing the City of Temple's Community Development Program pursuant to Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 373, and adopting the program goals, focus areas, program activities set forth in the Community Development Block Grant. Ms. Smith and Ms. Myers.
Actually, it's going to be me today. So
We'll take it.
thank you, Mayor and Council. You received a full presentation from Ms. Smith and Ms. Landeros on this item at your August 13th special council meeting. I am more than happy to go through the program again with you, the presentation again with you. This is just our next step in the process of creating the community development program that we've been working on for some time. So let me know if you'd like a presentation. Otherwise, we need to hold a second public hearing.
Okay. We have seen it a couple of times. Council, anybody need a presentation? And for going to presentation, this item is subject to a public hearing. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the platform. Alan? Nope. Okay. I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion on item number 13.
I'll make a motion for approval.
Second.
Pretty quick, Judy. We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Morales, and we have a second by Fitzgerald. Councilmember Walker. The council, if you would, please cast your vote. Lots of public hearings today. Very good. Item number 13 passes 5 votes to 0. We thank everyone for attending tonight's meeting, and this meeting is adjourned.